Well, good morning all. I think I've made a fairly extensive set of notes there, which you all have. There's nothing further I have to add to that, but I'd welcome your questions.
Mike Hussey will finish his career today or tomorrow. Was there any consideration given to him having an extended farewell, or do you think there's no room for sentiment? It's just time to move on and pick your best?
Well, that was certainly discussed. I mean, our intention before, 2 weeks ago, was to give Michael a break during the Sri Lankan series, and then have him refreshed and then ready for the come back into the ODIs against the West Indies and then off to India. Of course, things changed a bit last week. We've talked it over with Mike, but the overriding fact is what's best for Australian cricket, and we move forward, and we're very mindful of the 2015 World Cup. And we think these ODIs are very important in terms of players like Usman Khawaja and Philip Hughes and others having the opportunity being within the team and being in the ODI side rather than playing Big Bash League cricket, partly as a preparation for India for those who are selected. So I think we've got to use those places for the future of Australian cricket.
The next question, Phil.
John, obviously Michael Clarke and Matthew Wade are there. Are they just going to miss the first 2 games, just rested from the first?
Well, that's the intention. I mean, Michael, as you know, has been really struggling with a leg, and we hope that he'll be right by the third ODI, but that's not certain. But the intention is certainly to have Matthew Wade back for that.
Just on Matthew Wade, is there any concern over his keeping at the moment?
Look, he's a very talented cricketer, a very talented keeper and batsman. He's young, and we think he'll get better and better. And this has been the history of Australian cricket. I can go back to Rod Marsh starting in 1970-71, and he and Ian Healy and others, improved remarkably over the first couple of years. So we're certainly looking towards Matthew to improve. I think he's keeping well, but I'm sure that he's got good skills, and he'll keep better as time goes on.
John, how's the spin situation looking now as we get to the end of the Sri Lankan series and have India coming up? Are you clear on your options at the moment?
Yeah, we're pretty clear on our options. I mean, we'd certainly wish to have a greater depth of quality spin bowlers than we have, but we've got a pretty clear direction as to where we're going in terms of India and beyond, yeah.
Who's apart
Well,
from...
look, I won't say now because we've got a pretty good options, but there are 2 or 3 players who we're considering to back up Nathan Lyon. And I mean, one of the things is we're certainly hoping that Glenn Maxwell develops as an all-rounder, as a batting all-rounder who bowls decent off-spin. And he's a very talented player who we think is likely to improve on a fairly steep incline.
How close were you to playing him in this test match, and why didn't you play?
Yeah, look, we were close to playing him. We were close to playing him, so it was a close decision. But we thought the best side for this game was the side we put out.
John, has Shane Watson spoken to this?
Where's this coming from?
Over here.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Got to stand up tall.
Yeah.
Has Shane Watson spoken to the selectors about a desire to move back to opening in the Test team?
Look, Andy Bickle, Michael Clarke, Mickey Arthur and myself had a long talk with Shane on the day before the Test, the 2nd of January, and we had a long talk and a thorough talk, and it was mostly devoted to his bowling and what he thought he could do and in the different formats. It wasn't, we didn't actually talk about batting position, batting order.
John, the selection of Brad Haddin, is that sort of with one eye to later in the year that if Matthew Wade happens to be injured between now and the Ashes, that he'd be the person that would come in either format, so you'd like to get him back in the national team?
Yeah, we've been consistent with that. We're of the view that the 2 best wicketkeeper batsmen in Australia are Matthew Wade and Brad Haddin. So if something happened to Matthew, then Brad Haddin would come into the side. We may or may not take 2 keepers to India and or England. And at this stage, our firm intention is if we take 2, there'll be Matthew Wade and Brad Haddin.
And we haven't seen Ben Cutting in the national squad since the first test of last summer. How have you sort of rated his progress since then? And is this a sign that you see him more as a limited overs bowler than a test bowler at the moment?
No, we see him as a very good cricketer. I mean, if you look at his figures, he's a prolific wicket taker, a very good fieldsman, and some of his batting, some of his innings have been just devastating. So we're looking at him as a very good cricketer, a well-performed cricketer, who could be suited to all 3 forms. So we're giving him an opportunity in this form.
John, I know it's not your responsibility, but the team is obviously very different from the Test team, and there's obviously a lot of Australian players or players playing in Australia going through the side. How do you think the punters might feel for the first 2 games with some of the big names not being there?
Well, I think we've picked a particularly exciting side. I mean, Aaron Finch, I guess a lot of you have seen Aaron play. Well, there are not many more exciting players than Aaron, so if he gets runs, he gets them in quite spectacular fashion. And I've just mentioned Ben Cutting, if he gets runs there. I mean, I think this is a very, very attractive side, and how will we know about the best players of the future if opportunity is not invested in some of these players?
And just following up from an earlier question, do you think you might have missed a trick by not playing Glenn Maxwell here, given that you've got India coming up?
Well, I mean, that was an option, and we certainly discussed that, but it was decided that the best team, the team that was considered to be best for this Test match was the 11 that we played. But that was certainly discussed.
I think for a while, John, there hasn't been a real sort of consistent opening partnership for ODIs. Obviously, I think probably the first few years sort of shaping towards Finch and
Hughes.
Finch and Hughes,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Yeah.
But sort of, is that sort of possibility for a longer term, or is David Warner definitely going to slot back into the top
Look,
2?
I mean, David Warner is a fine player, and he's having a break. As you know, his program has been relentless, and I think we all benefit from having a break and come back refreshed and better than before. Our intention is certainly to have David Warner come back. We see him as part of our best one-day side, yes. And then he will bat with whoever it is at the time. And we'll see. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for Aaron Finch in these next 2 games, and we'll see how he goes.